LawBreakers is a multiplayer-only game. That's why the maps that we create need to be expertly crafted to perfection, not only from an artistic standpoint, but also from a design standpoint. Iteration upon iteration is key for creating a great multiplayer map, from making sure that the environments look great against character silhouettes to ensuring that player line of sights all make sense. Since we're all about open development at Bosky, I thought it would be great to take a look behind the scenes at the creation of our first map, Grandview. Grandview started as an idea alongside many other prototypes at the very early stages of development. At this early phase in creation, concept art and early designs helped frame the aspirations for what the map would become, eventually landing in the hands of environment artists to help bring it to life.
This is what we call DM Grand, and DM Grand was our first real test bed into map making. And this is when the company was brand new and we were all getting used to each other, and so nobody really kind of knew what to expect from one another. So it was one big experiment. And what you see with DM Grand is a lot of what eventually becomes Grandview. So one thing we tried to do with DM Grand was be really specific with where we put our structures and how they're assembled to show a sort of a consistent shape language. It's a Shura base, so they basically have all this money and they erect this base in the Grand Canyon. Ultimately it's a supplement or drug facility. That's kind of the fiction behind it. From an environment art standpoint, it's kind of nice to have that juxtaposition between organic and structural. It provides something we call landmarking. And landmarking is cool because when you're playing a game, you want a quick read and say, oh, I'm over by the bell tower, or oh, I'm over by the massive land bridge, or whatever you want, whatever we call out. Another good example of landmarking is just a huge rock formation that we put right in the center of our map.
We'll kind of stumble upon these areas where it's kind of a place of interest, and we need a cool hero prop. That's also something that we'll kind of take the time to think, okay, well, what could it be? And as an example, the bell in the center courtyard. We kind of wanted to have like a ancient Japanese bell, but that also had maybe a little bit of tech around it. So that's something that we'll kind of place there, have a little gameplay, and see if that's going to flesh out.
When we do play testing, we'll basically have a cutoff time, usually in the morning. We'll say, okay, any changes that the environment art team has needs to get in so we can test it and mess around. So every day what would happen is you would get updates to the map, and it would show our geometry changes and then you could run around.
While the art is important, at the same time, the level itself is being chipped away at. Our level designers approach every inch of the map with care. When crafting a map, they need to take into account absolutely everything in the game, from character abilities to weapons, the game mode, and much more.
To get to the state that Grandview is in now, we actually had to start further back than that. So I'm going to walk you through one of our first test maps that we made. At the time, we only had a couple of characters and a few abilities, and we weren't quite sure where we wanted those characters to end up in the play space. At the time, they were really insane. So like one character could jump from here all the way to the rooftop in one ability. And it ended up being too large of a play space for the type of game we wanted to make. So we made these frontline test maps, which were basically just a couple of hallways with different widths and one that had a bump in the middle. And once we played this, we realized all of the abilities were just too insane from the start. So from there, we went through and we set up a quick little map in what we call our dev gym, which is basically just a bunch of shapes and variables for us to test the characters out in. And we set them all up in like 10-yard increments and then one close 5-yard increment. And we sat down with Cliff and we said, how far do you want most combat encounters to be? And he said, I want that one. It ended up being around 20 yards, 15 yards for the general encounters. So we took those numbers and we started building out a new map that sort of limited the arenas to specific distances so that most of the time you're going to encounter somebody really closely rather than they're 4 football fields away. Our first iteration was, this is Grandview actually, was rotated. So instead of taking a base and mirroring it and having it identical, we ended up making one base and then flipping it 180 degrees. So this is, for competitive reasons, you want both sides to be the same when you have a mode that requires players to take an object back and forth to flag rooms. This quickly turned into a problem. We found that players were naturally picking a left or right direction based on the way the layout looked. Like one side looked safer than the other. So both teams were running in circles constantly. You didn't really have like clashes face to face. You just would run this way, there'd be nobody. The other team would run this way and they'd find nobody. And it was kind of sparse. After probably about a month of playing this, we ended up mirroring the map. And so here's a more recent version of Grandview and Gray Box Phase mirrored. And we found that people would start to bump heads in the same pathways rather than circling each other. So this was a huge improvement over all of the playtests that we had. People were having more fun, combat was exciting, you had an exchange of abilities, the play space size itself felt about right, the characters were big on your screen. And so from then on we decided all future maps for this particular game mode are going to end up being mirrored instead of rotated 180 degrees. One thing we were careful of is working with the art team to make sure that the gray box level is preserved. We don't want to have the art objects come in and all of a sudden the layout is completely different because they've intruded in spaces or they've taken away things that are important. So if I flip between these two screenshots, you can see that the layout is nearly identical after the art pass. And this helps preserve all the tuning we did in the gray box phase to make sure it stays fun. So here's another example of the flag room after art pass. You can see it's very close. The cover objects are in the same spot. The doors are in the same position. The line of sight from the upper level to the lower is almost identical. And so that's something we plan on continually doing for all of our future levels, is making sure that if it's fun in the gray box, it's going to be fun when the art comes in as well. So going through the process of Grandview, I think was great for the entire company. It kind of gave us a sense of what the scope is for every future level, how we can approach it, how we can do it faster. And since we finished this for PAX, overall every level we've been working on since has gone probably 10 times faster through this process. So it was a great first test to figure out how we're going to make the entire game.
Domination.
Grandview is very important to us, as it's the first real culmination of the team's efforts, from art to design and everything in between. Seeing our community play it at PAX made the entire project real, and its trip from prototype to final involved thousands of hours of work from everyone on the team. We can't wait to show you the next map that we're working on. We're going to be doing more of these developer diaries in the future, so please follow @BossKey and @LawBreakers on Twitter and subscribe to see when these videos go up. From everyone at the team, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.